I just want to thank Mr. Shadowfax42 for getting me onto this article from the BBC News, a UK website, which talks about a 50 Shades of Grey book burning organized by an abuse charity group. And this article, it's so great on so many levels. It's incredibly interesting to me. So Charity for Abuse Victims is planning to burn copies of an erotic bestseller, 50 Shades, a trilogy about a steamy romance between a businessman and a student, contains themes of sadism and masochism. Something I will say about this is from my personal experience of dating feminists, and as well as reading some books like Forbidden Flowers by Nancy Friday, which is an excellent book which I will link in here, which is a book written by a feminist or self-proclaimed feminist. I'm sure people will say that she's not really a feminist. And it's a book which is a collection of sexual fantasies often sent by women also who hold feminist beliefs. Sexual fantasies that we wouldn't tell anybody else about apart from a feminist author, apparently. And if you would flip to a random page in this book, if you find a woman not getting raped by more than 2 guys, you would be very lucky. Like if she's getting raped by just 1 guy in this book, in this page you turn to, you would be hard pressed to find it. That's how out there this book is, and it's received mostly positive reviews in terms of the content being very factual to how women actually think as well and fantasize, sound like. And I'm not against sexual fantasies or anything. That's usually what a fantasy is. It's a fantasy. I know feminists won't really understand this, but what a fantasy is you imagine something in your brain that you think will go a certain way, but in reality, that's generally not the way it goes. And as MRAs, we know that when we rape a woman, it usually doesn't turn out like it does in porno, like they're not really happy and orgasming all over the place. You really have to, hold them down and hit them a few times and then get rid of the body. So the reality of the rape fantasies are very different to what we imagine. And I know feminists have a really hard time distinguishing between what is reality and what is just made up stuff in their head, or when somebody's saying what they're actually going to do, or when somebody's just making a joke. And hopefully feminists will kind of work on that and not take things so literally. But I digress. So my experience with feminists is that they suffer from the nun syndrome, which is when somebody is out there reading all about how the Catholic Church burned witches and tortured women, or how badly women have been treated and how whipped they were. That kind of sinks into their head. So with the feminists I dated, in general, they are very heavy into sadism and masochism, the whips and all, and generally are very interested in torture also. And this is just my personal experience. I don't know if I can generalize it, but I would go out on a limb and say that feminists are almost incapable of having a regular relationship. We really have to turn it into something absurdly kinkified. Which isn't a bad thing again, but it's good to have also a base where you can really enjoy yourself without any of the other stuff. But again, I digress. So I'll go on to what happened. So Claire Phillipson of West Side Women in Need, this charity organization, said the theme was vile and urged women to drop off copies to her Washington office for a bonfire on the 5th of November. The whole idea is absolutely insane, because if you're burning books, that means that you're taking books out of production that people have already bought, and so they already paid money to the author, who by the way is also a woman, and they can't lend it out to people who would maybe otherwise buy it and support the author. And you're hurting the environment as well if you give a shit about that, but you probably don't care. And the whole burning book thing, people usually call feminists feminazis, and if you actually remember what Hitler did, which is burn books, and a lot of other people who aren't very liked in history also did, was burning books. You might see the I wouldn't say irony, because it's quite parallel to what feminism really is, but definitely you can see the humor in it. Miss Phillipson, who said she had read 2/3 of the book before she gave up in disgust, said she was furious that libraries throughout the Northeast were ordering extra copies of the trilogy to cope with demand. So she hadn't even read the whole book all the way through. Newcastle City Libraries have 20 copies of the trilogy in stock. Sunderland City Council has 9 copies with 4 more on order. Libraries in Durham have 13 with 320 people on the waiting list, and Northumberland County Council has 8 copies with 6 more on order. Complaining about libraries having this book is also ridiculous, because what would a library do with the book? It would rent it out to people. Now, yes, that would make more people, I guess, read it, but in general, people would not support the author because they could go to the library and rent the book for free, as opposed to actually buying the book. And I think a lot of people would eventually give in and buy the book because they want to see what the book is all about anyway. So isn't it better to have books at the library so that the author doesn't get any money from it? I'm just saying, I mean, it's a really dumb idea. Like, if you want to really attack somebody, and not a thought through idea to burn books and complain about libraries having it. But okay, so Miss Phillipson said, I do not think I can put into words how vile I think this book is, and how dangerous I think the idea is that you get a sophisticated but naive young woman and a much richer, abusive older man who beats her up and does some dreadful things to her sexuality. Of course, if it was a older woman, abusing or raping another woman, that would be good rape, I guess, according to the vagina monologues. And I'm sure there wouldn't be a book burning organized for it by anybody, or maybe by the other side, by the Catholic Church, but that's a different story also. So, but I doubt that this woman would be complaining, because she was most likely is a hypocrite as well as a complete nut job. My main objection is that at a time when local authorities are making cuts to outreach and refuge services for women experiencing domestic violence, are services that are unavailable to men, by the way. We have libraries wasting and grossly misusing public funds, I'm guessing, but it's cut out, to buy a book which says domestic violence is sexy. The money would be better spent supporting victims. Sutherland City Councillor John Kelly said, "We want to give people freedom of choice in what they read. It is not for us to dictate what material they read. We want to give them a wide variety of material." So that's incredibly an intelligent statement that John Kelly said. And this again shows you how feminist is not really out there to benefit women, because look what we have here. We have somebody burning a book that is written by a woman for women, and this shows to you that feminism is not the dictionary definition of what people think, what feminists keep saying that it is. It is simply a narrow-minded view of how women and men should act, feel, and perceive the world, and if they don't get their way, they will take it to the extreme, like this article shows that they have. And I suggest before any more funding is given to this organization, I'm all for women's shelters of genuine abuse, as I am for shelters for men and legal support for men to have custody of their children, and men who have been falsely accused of abuse. But I do not want money spent on a nut job that's out there calling to burn books. She should not be in charge of this organization, and she should be removed immediately and replaced by somebody else if she's receiving public funding. So I hope that's what comes out of the story. And again, it's a very interesting article, and yes, you could not make this stuff up. Like I said, the best enemy of feminism is themselves, usually.